Okay, everyone, you guys are on at 5:30, so those who are on prompt are entitled to hear the whole message. The other people will have to get it as it is going to be recorded. And anybody contacting the office of Longevity Plus and speaking to my assistant Laura, and by simply calling 928-474-3684 extension 134. Laura will be sure that anybody that you feel needs to hear this message can do so by simply requesting that we email the recorded conference call tonight. Now, the topic that we have tonight could turn out to be kind of long, depending on how. And I love getting questions, because the more questions I get, the more things come out that are relevant to you, because it's a huge topic. I've only been practicing medicine 54 years, and I got into this laser story because it became clear that as good as we are with taking our nutritional supplements, they don't do everything if the cells are too low in energy. And so we know that pulsed electromagnetic field, the PMT 100 that we've introduced across the world, is changing lives, but at $23,000, that's not something that everybody's going to have access to. So I looked desperately to find another way to raise the ATP level of our cells. And in so doing, I toured the Medica conference in Dusseldorf, which is actually 19 halls comprising 38 acres, and I looked at a couple thousand booths, and I found a really interesting laser that I liked. It's a handheld laser made in Israel called B-Cure, but the sad information is that the inventor, Mike, is so concerned that FDA of the United States will lock him out, and he will not be able to sell his laser if he lets you buy it, even though it is legal in all of Europe, and even though we had made arrangements for the B-Cure laser to be available through the distributor of Longevity Plus products, who handles the anti-aging supplement line called Longevity Plus that I helped formulate and design. They handle it in London and out of the Isle of Man for 40 countries. And that International Anti-Aging Systems was going to fill the orders for people in various countries that didn't know how to get a B-Cure. At this moment, I can only tell you that, unfortunately, since the instructions from B-Cure is that they do not want me to facilitate anybody in America buying a B-Cure, which was an exciting story because it was going to cost you in the neighborhood of $1,000, and having researched extensively all the lasers out there, and there's lots of good companies. I'm not against any of the companies. Erconia, I think, has an excellent product. They have single units for as little as $6,000, and then double units for $12,000 to $14,000, and $18,000 to $25,000. But those are decisions that wind up. Your doctor owns those, and I was excited if I could empower people to help themselves at home. And so that's why I have really diligently worked, and I'm not done just because Israel is not willing to allow their cutting edge. And why is it cutting edge? Because for less than $1,000, it was doing more than I've seen in $2,000, $4,000, $8,000, $10,000, and $14,000 lasers. And eventually there'll be more competition, and that will happen. But it's so important for all of you listening now to know that we have proof today that you can cure cancer. Ovarian cancer, 100%. Prostate cancer, 100%. Well, you hadn't heard that too many times before, but we have documentation. And in the case that we're talking about now, Dr. Pott, a dentist from Vienna, presented at acimconnect.com. I repeat, ACIMconnect, all one word. acimconnect.com is where you go to see some powerful knowledge about what I go to, because I go to conferences somewhere in the world virtually every week or every other week. I will be teaching in Brazil, 1,000 doctors for 7 hours, leaving on Tuesday, and be gone for over a week. And then I get back and I teach in places like Taiwan, and then in places like London and across the board, I've got a strong message because we know supplements that, after all, Longevity Plus has oral chelation, and I haven't had anybody die of a heart attack in over 20 years, and I cancel bypass on everybody. So I'm kind of bored with heart disease, but cancer has been kind of a new frontier, and so it's exciting to tell you that ASIMConnect.com has recorded patients on this past Saturday evening with success stories. One of the success stories was the following. A place called South Coast Medical, run by Dr. Lee Aaron Keneally. It's in the Laguna area, Newport area. The lady had, at age 52, had been told that her breast cancer, by the time they discovered it, was in every part of her body, and it was hopeless. There was no point in even treating her. She should just go and check herself into a hospice and prepare to die. Well, instead, she did some research on her own, and she saw Dr. Lee Aaron Keneally, and she's 100% successful recovery today, and we have case after case like that. And the next case was presented, and these cases were recorded by video, and they will be eligible for you to download free of charge. When you go to ASIM Connect, you can hear patients talking about their success. The next case that was presented was, again, Dr. Keneally's patient, and it was a multiple sclerosis patient who had, within weeks after delivering a baby, wound up in a wheelchair, virtually paralyzed, unable to even get herself in and out of the wheelchair, and obviously a young woman. And again, she saw the big neurologist, and the big neurologist says, well, we can start you on some drugs, but you have a rare form of foment MS. I can't promise you anything. So instead, she went to Dr. Lee Aaron Keneally, and she now is fully active, full recovery, as you can see. So the point is this. The reason I brought the laser into the discussion is because a Dr. Pop in Vienna, a dentist working with some oncologists, presented 35 cases of advanced cancer, most of them ovarian, some were prostate, roughly 11 cases of prostate. She put them on a program that you know, Dr. Gordon, I am the detox kid, and therefore they were put on ways of dealing with the heavy metals. And in this case, because they're dentists, they were paying a lot of attention to the amalgam and other metals in the patient's mouth. So they gave them the vitamin C and the selenium, and they gave them some low-dose DMSA, and they gave them a treatment program, and they removed all of the metals. They even did the MELSSA, M-A-S-S-A test to find how sensitive you were to copper or zinc or to tin or to the silver or to the mercury or whatever. But they only gave half of them the treatment with systemically administered laser, a unit that I estimate could be duplicated. Since we can't have the one from Israel right now, we'll probably wind up with something in the neighborhood of $2,000 or $3,000. So not everybody's going to be able to buy this. But what happened is this. The half of the patients who were treated with the laser had far better results. Their PSA test and their test for ovarian cancer, CA-125, came down dramatically on the standard program, but those with the laser came down far better. And those that didn't come all the way down to showing there was no more cancer in the body, they just gave them some more laser. How did they give the laser? This is important. Well, let's go back for a moment. There are lots of good laser companies out there, and I'm not so worried about buyer beware. There's many reputable companies, and let's just look at the research going on at the University of Washington, the Pain Center. They took 35 patients with serious carpal tunnel syndrome that had them fully disabled, and nothing had helped those 35 patients. They have 100% recovery of those patients using laser. So this isn't going to be too hard. Photobiomodulation is a good word, but you can use check laser. The point is there's over 2,000 published papers, and they're doing stuff, and we'll talk about the work we're doing at Harvard with what we're going to introduce to you. But the big picture that we have to have you understand is that we did not treat the wrist on any of those people with carpal tunnel. That's a very important factor, because what I'm going to introduce you to tonight is going to really strain your belief system. Because it turns out that lasers, like I have been teaching everyone that I get well, because I train all the doctors. I lecture how to use the pulsed electromagnetic field, and it is proven to be reversing the causes of cancer, which is what? Cancer is the toxins in the cell making the cell unable to produce energy, so the cell has low ATP, and the net result is the cell is switched from normal metabolism to anaerobic. It has a low membrane potential. The cell is too acid. It needs to become more alkaline, which means it needs more electrons. Now, you can give electrons with vitamin C, and that helps, but you can do it with microcurrent. And so that's why I got into microcurrent, into heat, into laser, and into magnets, because I want to be able to get the sick area in your body to be restored. But it turns out that when your wrist is killing you, the cell bodies are in the neck area right near the spine, and if we treat there, but that's a beginning part of the story. Where I'm taking you is this. In my search to try to let more people access energy healing, which energy healing could be laying out of hands. It could be a microcurrent device. It could be a laser. I mean, let's make it really dumb simple. Let's say you have a tooth that hurts and you go to Office Max and you buy a laser pointer. And then you buy a magnet from any magnet store and you combine a magnet and a laser. Do you think the tooth will stop hurting? Yes, it stops hurting in 90% of people. So I don't want to make this too complicated. But I do want to add a little science to it. So I am going to repeat to you that the big story is when you raise ATP in the cell, all of the other things that you do, if you're fighting heart disease or autism or you're fighting Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, I don't care what you're fighting. That's why my website, GordonResearch.com, has 2 separate 1-hour Part 1, Part 2, it's how to fight for your health. And FIGHT stands for FIGHT, food, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin. But in winning this fight to have you feel as good as I do at 78, I'm the healthiest I've been, but of course the big change for me was I got a hold of this $23,000 device, which people can get without all the toys for $21,500, but that's still out of the range of most people. So we have to look at other tricks. And it turns out that any of these can be helpful. Microcurrent is helping people. Lasers are helping. Magnets are helping. Every kind of sleeping on a magnet, buying cheaper magnet bracelet. Everything's in the field helping somebody a little bit. But a lot of us need a lot of help, as I needed a lot. So it turns out that where we're at is that with the ability.
Kathy Hannon.
Thank you for joining. So since you've listened, just realize that everybody, by contacting my office at 1-800-580+ or 928-978-4424 is my cell phone, and the office number is 928-472-4226, 134. The point is, it will send you the recording from today. But I'm going to be doing a web day on lasers. Why? Because I've got to get the word out that lasers applied to not the painful area. Essentially, here's what happened. The cases of ovarian cancer, which you know is a very serious cancer, in the cases of prostate cancer, what we did is we used essentially a handheld laser that I said might cost $2,500, $3,000. And so some people would own it themselves, but they used the doctor's office, and they went in. They were treated 17 minutes a day. 8.5 minutes was to the abdomen where the tumor was thought to be, and if it was thought that it was already in the liver, half the part of the time was over the liver. And the other half the time they treated the brain, over the frontal area, like over your forehead and over the back of the head. Now, what's remarkable is this. By treating the brain, the results of the detox anti-cancer alternative. This was alternative. These patients did not get any drugs for their cancer. I do not believe in drugs for cancer. I teach everybody that chemo for cancer makes no sense. Cancer is a metabolic disease, and it requires your body getting healthy, and you will handle the disease. As we can now prove. Nobody has the kind of data I'm telling you. I repeat, Dr. Pott, Vienna, dentist, showed 35 cancer cases, all went into complete resolution of their cancer. The tumor marker test went in every case to normal. Now, I have experience with tumor markers on 10,000 patients in Tokyo working with Dr. Kobayashi. And there we found that if we did an annual cancer test like you can do in this country for $400 or so, and that cancer test in this country is called caprofile.net. If you do that every year, if your test is a little abnormal, no big deal. It just says we have to tighten down your lifestyle, simplify your diet, lower your stress, get you on a little bit more immune support, more detox, maybe some sauna. I mean, it's nothing to it. In every case, the test goes back to normal. But now I'm talking about cases that didn't come in on an annual basis, and by the time they got in, they were ready to die. And we still have such dramatic successes that I have done a whole webinar discussing what Jim Forsyth and Reno and other doctors are doing on cancer, and that, again, is on 2 websites. On my website, GordonResearch.com, I usually get most of the information there, but sometimes they ask me to do a guest spot for ACIMConnect.com, which stands for the Academy Complementary and Integrative, but it's ACIMConnect.com. And that way you can be up on cancer. But where I'm taking you is laser. But where can I take you since I can't deliver the $1,000 wonderful finding that I found in Israel? And who knows, with our government, it might take another year before they get it in this country approved. It's completely approved in Europe. And if you were in Europe, you could buy one, but they will not allow me to have my European distributor, International Anti-Aging, that carries everything. We have skin cure for cancer called Bec5. We have many things, and it's totally legal. When you call there, you can buy it as an American citizen, including thyroid that you may not get in our country. But the point is that the poor guy in Israel is so worried about the FDA that he's not going to facilitate your getting the $1,000 laser. So what can I do to make you still have some of the fun that I have of feeling fantastic, even though we live on a poisoned planet where every one of us is loaded with polybrominated diphenyl ether and dioxins and PCB and bisphenol A, and if we've stopped methylating it. A lot of you take a lot of supplements, as I do. You can't make it today without supplements. Everybody has to be on omega-3 and vitamin D anyway. But just because you take these things,
you can do a what change?
So can a laser help you? So here's the story. I am putting on my website, GordonResearch.com, a whole separate section on laser, and I'm going to be putting about 40 pages to bring you up to date, because I repeat, if you go to Google and you put in the word photobiomodulation, you'll rapidly see that this is now known to treat Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and cancer and hypertension. And, I mean, across the board, I mean, the research going on in this field is astonishing. But, where do we treat? As I said, when the wrist is bad, you may not wind up just treating the wrist. So what has happened is that in China they realized that something is going on and we have light deficiency. So I've taught everybody that the world's magnetic field is getting very weak. It's down to 0.5 when it used to be 20, so I have a reason to have everybody go to a doctor's office and use a PMF treatment. But what about light? Well, we know with really good studies done by some leading scientists in our country that they actually can show that schizophrenia and diabetes and all the incidence is tied to what level of light you are exposed to. For example, the article Environment, Health Perspectives 2003 was on the analysis of immune-related, like type 1 diabetes and other autoimmune diseases as it relates to how far you are away from the equator. So it's pretty interesting that light is what we're talking about now. The people that I'm going to tell you about, which is actually out of both Malaysia and out of Canada, are in the light business, like having a bright light. You've heard that because people get SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and you can buy a bright light, and you can buy that at Sears or something, and different full-spectrum lights that are good for plants. And so those are not prescriptions, and this that we're discussing now is not a prescription. And therefore, it is not regulated, and therefore they're not afraid to sell it to you at a very attractive price. How attractive? Well, they have them for $2.99, $3.99, and $4.99. Those are attractive prices, and I'm so excited about it that I've worked with New Biomed and Jim McBride that I work with that has the company that handles the pulsed electromagnetic field, which is called Edwards Group, is now handling this as well as some lower cost alternatives to our expensive $23,000 laser magnet. So we will be getting websites where you can become knowledgeable about why you might wind up using a laser not on the wrist, but actually putting the laser in the nose. Now, what would that do? That would be called intranasal light therapy. Has that been around? Yes, if you look, there are tremendous numbers of papers. Well, how long has it been used? Well, it's been conservatively estimated that over 1 million of these lasers have been used in China. And now you get down to, well, how cheap can they have it? Well, there's one on the website that's for sale for $40, Bionace, and it doesn't have much power, and they kind of came in to try to help allergies. So why would somebody spend $499? Well, because this company is actually doing research with Harvard to try to figure out which wavelength and does it need to be pulsed. So in other words, with light, you get into this whole problem of how much power you need. Well, don't get carried away with power, because if you get carried away, some doctors think, oh, if the laser has 5 watts, well, I'm going to get one with 10 or 25 or 500 or 1,000 watts, and obviously they're going to burn. And they haven't paid attention. If you're thirsty, you don't want to drink out of a fire hose, so you need to. But I don't want to go too far and all that. We'll cover that at another time. But I do want to give you the good news, is that you will be able to help discern for yourself. Do you want to do a $299 one that is a LED, or a $399 that is a laser, or do you want to do an actual $499 that's another LED, but it is pulsing, and it has been carefully selected to move over to the 810 wavelength, which is near the infrared part of the spectrum. So this gets a little complicated. I don't want to drag it down with too much detail, because all we want you to know is that, amazingly enough, we've seen such dramatic success that the company that we are choosing to help introduce this from is a light company, and they're simply saying, hey, we'll give you 90 days, and if at the end of 90 days you don't think this is helping you, we will give you back 80% of your money. In other words, what they're trying to say is we'll give you a 1-year guarantee that this light is not going to stop working, and if the device breaks. So what we're trying to do is tell you that the co-inventor of intranasal light therapy is president of Medical Lights Research, and we've arranged for New Biomed to carry this, and Longevity Plus will make sure that you get to the right person, and you can decide to use your credit card and take a gamble and spend $299, $399, and $499, and because I've pressured them, they're taking a 10% discount off of those prices and sending it free of any shipping charges. So we're trying to make this experiment in getting you healthier affordable. But again, it seems so weird to tell somebody that you're going to take that laser and put it in my nose. Well, what would happen if you put it in my nose? Well, if you put it in your nose, if you look at any picture of a skull, that nose is so close to the pituitary hypothalamic axis that you're actually going to see improvements in growth hormone level, which is kind of amazing, because we all know that we're going to live longer and longer. And why would you like to have growth hormone? Well, obviously, when you're 90, you want to be able to open the doors. You want to be able to push things around. So what kind of studies can you find exist? And we're going to put these studies on my website, as many as we can get permission to have on the website. And so what can you know has helped? High blood pressure has helped, high cholesterol, insomnia, early losses of memory, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, migraine, and headaches. And across the board, what we're teaching people is that this is an amazing way of helping bring the light that we're missing, that we get when we're at the equator. But as you all know, there's periods of time, well, in Germany, everybody knows that for 2, 3, 4 months there's no sun. We have that in the valley sometimes, Sacramento, California. I lived in Auburn. We had sun. I felt great there. They would be 3 months under the cloud. So light is important, but coherent light is giving you little packets of photons. And photons, when you study the new thing called quantum mechanics, become electrons. And these electrons are able to help make an unhealthy tissue alkaline, and they help do so many things that it doesn't even seem rational that the simple process of putting a light, but let me tell you, I have had many people save a whole pulling of a tooth by rushing to Office Max and buying a laser pointer for $28. And that alone doesn't quite do it, so because there's not a lot of power there and it's not the right wavelength, it's not going to be as powerful as the one we're talking about, but light is light, and then when I add a magnet to it, so there's lots of things going on here. So then the question becomes, well, how would you decide? Because I'm making it really complicated for you. I'm not making it simple. If I said the one with the most steadies that ties to the brain, if you're worried about your brain and you're losing memory and you've got somebody who you're concerned about with maybe going into any kind of brain disease, then there's no choice. You're going to have to spend the $499. We give you 10% off. It's going to be $450. They're going to cover the cost of shipping, and you've got it. But if you're just totally trying to figure this whole thing out, and why is Dr. Gordon so excited about laser? What in the world? How come laser is making cancer patients live that much better and get things? It becomes, and how do we use it? Well, we're going to use it 25 minutes once a day, hands-free. But I have a complaint with their device. When I put it in the nose, they have a little nose clip, and it really squeezes my nose a little bit. They don't want it to fall on the floor. Not that it would break, because it's pretty unbreakable, but they've put it so you may find that it just, you're going to be aware for the first 3-4 minutes that something is kind of squeezing your nose to hold it in. Other than that, you can keep doing anything you want to be doing, and they tend to use it not twice a day unless there is separated by preferably 8 or 12 hours, because it's not the kind of thing that, you see, what you're doing is you're loading cells up with ATP so that cells can regenerate themselves and they can do cell-cell communication. And all of this is well explained on the information that I will be going into greater detail with on Monday. I'm doing another webinar, and in addition to that, I've already done the webinar on both the Israeli laser, which gives you the background of talking about Erconia, which is an American company now located in Texas. They started in Mesa, and they're the ones that I said can be from anywhere from 6,000 to 25,000. And there's a lot of really good work going on with what they do. And then the next webinar I did was all about what we're talking about, intranasal. And I gave you a pretty good overview of this astonishing research, because obviously what they had to do, and the reason it's $499, is they found that it had to be at a different wavelength and it had to pulse. So is anybody going to be sorry if they spend $499 minus 10%, and then say 2 months from now I find a great backup for the Israeli company that I don't now have, and they have a patient that does have ovarian cancer and wants to treat the abdomen? I have, in all candor, this no one laser is able to do everything that's possible out there. For example, I mentioned Erconia tells you a few lasers. They actually give you 3 different heads for $25,000. Why 3 different ones? Well, because one goes way almost to a purple light. What? Purple? Yeah, because at that wavelength, guess what happens? It really knocks out toe infection, toenail fungus infection. But the ability of the intranasal light to stimulate the brain and improve memory, stop migraine, help Parkinson's disease, help recovery from stroke. And what happens is that if we look at this research about treating the body, because here's what we used to do in Russia. You see, I travel the world studying all this stuff. And so I knew years ago they were taking a different device. Instead of putting it in the nose, they were putting it in your your vein, which was a good plan. They were treating your blood, which is a good plan. But not everybody wants to have something stuck into their vein. And it makes it a lot more expensive. How are you going to sterilize it and all these different things? And so it turned out that when we look at any anatomy chart, all of a sudden we realize the nose is so loaded with blood vessels. That's why a nosebleed can be almost life-threatening. There are so many blood vessels. So all of a sudden we realized that we could, instead of having to stick this in your vein, we could get a magical effect on your whole body. And guess what else? Your nose actually makes something called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide, some people have heard of it because it has a great deal to do with Viagra and all of the Cialis, and all of those are nitric oxide inducing drugs. And everybody knows that specifically they increase circulation to more focused on one part of the body. But the nose is making nitric oxide so that your lung gets more air in your brain and all your body. So it's amazing that when we put this energy in the nose, we're putting energy right where the master gland of your whole body, the pituitary that runs everything in your body, is run by that pituitary hypothalamic axis. In fact, you're treating the whole bottom of the brain. And so if we look then at all of these things, insomnia, Alzheimer's, mild cognitive impairment, if we look at migraine, schizophrenia, stroke, these are all studies that are in the literature that I will be hanging on my website for you to read more slowly and see, okay, well, how long did they treat? How many days did they treat? Some of them are treated 10 days, but in general, I'm going to refer now to the study going on that was the most impressive to me of all the studies, and that was the one going on in Vienna, where the dentist in Vienna, Dr. Pop, treated the patient approximately 8.5 minutes in the abdomen and 8.5 minutes in the brain area, 17 minutes, but that was a daily treatment, which is why I'm so gung-ho about keeping the price low enough that people don't have to go back and forth to a doctor's office, because this is not any of it going to be. What we're talking about in this case is no different than a skin light. In this case, there is no coverage in the hospital because it is really, truly not a medical device. This is a light device. In light, we can have full spectrum light. We can have light that feeds our plants. There's all kinds of things. So all of that, because I think it'll be more productive if any of you choose. Now, you can go ahead and ask questions.
What's our little lady too, this new one? This new one?
You'll be able to ask me a question. And if you
this one here. This one here. Well, she's a little Garry. She's got a Jason on the right. She's got contact for.
Will you please mute your phone?
Does anyone have a question? Hello there.
Yes,
I hear you.
Well, Dr. Gordon, I have a B-Cure laser. I bought it from Jim McBride.
Good.
And can you use that in your nose?
I'm so glad. Say it again. You have the what from Jim McBride? The what do you have?
I bought the PEMF.US, and I also bought the B-Cure laser.
Oh, you're doing fantastic. Okay, so here's the thing. With the B-Cure laser, I'm so glad that you have it, and understand this. It is doing things that you'll learn more, because I will be doing a webinar when I come back from Brazil on the 17th. I'll be doing a webinar on the 19th of March, where I'm going to be taking this subject to another level. All I have to do in the meantime is tell you that the B-Cure, you're lucky to have one. I'm sorry nobody else is going to have these. And you are able to absolutely, when you treat yourself first with the magnet, you've opened your body up, so everything else, when you swallow vitamin C, it's going to work better. Everything works better when you treat yourself, including hyperbaric. Whatever you do, if you do the magnet first. So that's one detail. With the little laser that I'm talking about in the nose, we've tested it, and these inexpensive nose ones can actually be used at the very time that somebody is treating their head, because you see, we get autistic kids talking, we get people out of wheelchairs, so you know how much we love the PMF. It's the most powerful, amazing ability to regenerate your body we've got. But I don't want people confused. Let's understand, these are different energies. How can I prove that? Very simple. If I have you move to Mars, within 2 days you're dead, unless you have your PEMF, because Mars has no magnet. But Mars has so much light that you wouldn't die from the lack of light. So I'm trying to make it clear that what you were lucky enough to have is two things that work synergistically, but the B-Cure, I learned the hard way, does not like to be on within the magnetic field when you're treating. In other words, you need to have turned off the PEMF before you decide to go ahead and treat with that wonderful laser that you've got, the B-Cure, and we're going to find another one. I don't know if it's TQ Solo or if it's going to be from Medical Electronics in Germany. There are many good companies, Thor. There are many good companies out there I like. We're going to help other people have a good held-hand unit like you do, and I'm so glad that you have it. And yes, they are synergistic, but specifically the wavelength of that device was more in the 600s, and if you had a relative that you were worried about that was starting to lose their memory or have Parkinson's or was having neurologic disease, that's where the 810, so as good as what you have. And here's the thing, don't ever get totally confused on this. Let me go slow. I said that if you go to Erconia, they have one that's purple. The purple is a separate wavelength, and it's really good for fungus of the toe. So I'm not trying to indicate that as good as the B-Cure is, or the nasal treatment, that it's that either one of those are specifically going to knock out those bacteria. But we have proof that the one I'm talking about in the nose does treat hospital-acquired infections. So the thing is that, although you could say that some devices that you don't own that have slightly different wavelength might work quicker, better, faster on certain conditions, you own a jack of all trades with the B-Cure, and I'm hoping to find a B-Cure equivalent from another source so everybody that is listening to this will be able to have one. But thank you for your question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but can I use that in my nose, the B-Cure?
Okay, so let's make it another way. If you take the B-Cure, it's not going to really, you can't slide that big light up your nose. You can hold it on the side of your nose, and you will be definitely helping yourself. Again, You're at a different wavelength, so you have a winner. Use it by all means. Let's discuss slowly. Let's just say that you had a friend who had prostate cancer, and you had that device that you've got. The device you have, the B-Cure, you would take that wide, there's a green light that comes out and it covers a large area. That's why I like the device. You would treat the patient over the person's bladder, and then you would treat the head, because we learned that if you go over the frontal area, which is right above your forehead, on each side, and treat for like a couple of minutes, and then go back for 2 minutes to each side that's over the occiput, that's right above where your neck ends, and treat each side. So I would treat 8 minutes those areas if I was just wanting to keep somebody with prostate or ovarian cancer. So treating the head is part of the game plan. But there's nothing wrong with you trying to get the benefit. You will be helping. Anything you do is going to be helping. All I need to do is tell you that technically your time is worth money. Technically, if you had the earliest losses of memory, sticking the light in the nose is going to make it go up toward the bottom of your brain, and I can't quite get the B-Cure to stick inside your nose and do exactly what it's doing. So if the B-Cure is keeping you well and you're not losing memory and you're doing fine, your blood pressure and everything is fine, we're not going to worry about you ever having to spend $499 and buy another laser. You have a jack of all trades that should take care of most of your needs. But since you've taken the time to be on this webinar, on this phone call today, just know that yes, there are reasons that some people are going to wind up owning both lasers because they have somebody in the family that's losing their memory, but at the same time they have somebody else who can't bend their back anymore or has a bad knee, and the little nose thing isn't going to be very effective to treat the knee. It's going to help your overall body, but it's not going to be that effective as the B-Cure or the equivalent that I will find for people will be for the knee. Does that answer it?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions anybody in the audience?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Gordon. This is Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, I have a couple specifics. I'll try to keep it straightforward. The first one is, did I understand with the nasal one that if you purchase it, you have a couple months, and if you don't notice an improvement, you get 80% of it back? Is that what I understand?
That's correct. It was 90 days. That is exactly correct.
Okay. The other thing is I have been battling Lyme disease with different infections, parasites, just the whole gamut, weakened immune system, yada, yada, yada. And I think strep and staph have always been an issue, and I understand that typically can be in the nose area. Would the nasal product be good for helping knock out things like strep and staph that are kind of stubborn?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, they have done studies. I'm just glossing over the studies because there are so many technical studies that it's overwhelming when you take the time to actually read these, and we will make these studies more available. And remember, when I do a webinar on Monday, that webinar will be up usually the next day, and I'll be drilling down even deeper into these things we're talking about. But you see, let's just look at, again, anoxic brain injury, embolic stroke, ischemic stroke, traumatic brain injury, Parkinson's, mild cognitive, depression. These are all studies that are actually ongoing. And so across the board, we've actually done studies on the ability to handle airborne infections in a hospital. So you are absolutely going to win, and the more you learn about it, it's going to be something that it's just like if you take and buy a really nice classic car, and you put in seat covers and paint the cars in it, but you never get around to replacing the battery, and it starts worse and worse and doesn't start finding you need a jumper. What you're doing with this is kind of the electrical system, because it's going directly to the hypothalamic pituitary axis that runs your whole body, and you're energizing it on a planet that's cheated us. We're losing 95% of the magnetic field, and we do not have the oxygen we used to have. The cars are still, I mean, in the big department stores in Tokyo, they let you breathe oxygen when you're shopping because they know that you're exhausted because the cars are using up all the oxygen. So we're losing it all, and we're all born with lead poisoning, which is why I have everybody on zeolite, and the new zeolite that we're going to have and announcing on the 19th of March, we'll be describing a zeolite with amazing ability to increase electrons called hydrogen dramatically is going to help us fight back against the challenges we have. So that I'm glad you brought up the story of Lyme, because I teach everybody that I call Lyme lowered immune metabolic encephalopathy syndrome. The reason I put those big words together is instead of just focusing on Bartonella or Babesia or some organism, we teach people that if we can't lower the level of lead and mercury, if we can't get off the food that we're sensitive to, tighten up our intestine, take the probiotic every day, find something to neutralize the neurotoxins, carcinogens, and endocrine disruptors in you. In other words, how can I be so sure? Well, we have a study called 10 Americans, paid for by EWG.org. You go there, and there isn't a person on the planet, including you, that's not loaded with bisphenol A. Everybody is. And that stops your methylation. So as you get the big picture, so only the reason the laser is so important is it becomes just like what happened with me. I've been sick most of my life. I've studied everywhere. I was building myself back up. I know all the difference between K2 and which is the right kind of lipoic acid. There isn't anything you can buy that I don't take, but I still had low energy because my body wasn't using it, because I had every tooth once filled with mercury, and so my body, until it got a hold of a pulsed electromagnetic field, simply couldn't operate. And because I can't get everybody a PMF, I'm settling for second best. I need to raise ATP in every cell in your body. And amazingly enough, the going to the fuse box in the house is a pretty good place to start looking for trouble. And the fuse box in our body is the brain, and right there. So you will never be sorry that you have bought this. And it just becomes a simple thing of following the instructions, to using it 25 minutes once a day. Late in the day is fine, but the more that we understand how it's working, it's allowing cells to do their function. So let's repeat what is going on. I became a world expert on magnesium because my heart was so weak, and I skipped so many beats, and everything was sick. And it turned out I had no stomach acid. So anyway, it turns out that what you do in the magnet, we tell people the magnet causes the cell to exercise, And that means that there's a little effect called bioporation, and each time it beats, the cell opens up a little bit. The membrane lets the vitamin C and the magnesium get into the cell, and the cell ATP goes up. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that's the energy of the cell. Any cell in your body that's not operating optimally is low on ATP. And guess what happens when you raise it? It's like when you give a housewife all the energy she needs, all of a sudden, and 2 days later, the entire house is clean. So what's that process? That process is called autophagy. Autophagy means self-cleaning. That's what happens when we raise the ATP in your body. That's why this is so basic, because your brain stops working effectively because we have these things on the back of people's hands when they're old. You see all those brown spots? Those are lipofuction. Those are clinkers. That's unburned junk that the cell can't get rid of. That's going on in your brain. It's going on with your immune cells. So anything I can do to raise the energy in your cells allows us to state that you're going to recover from a traumatic brain injury, a learning deficit, depression. You're going to get rid of post-traumatic stress disorder, panic disorders, dementia. And so these are all the things. But all we're talking about here is light. This is as basic as if you've heard about the crisis we have with the vitamin D, because so many people don't get on the sun, and you've heard that we all need to be on 5,000 units of D. But then once you decide that you're going to be in light, then you can get down to the fine-tuning and say, okay, I can't afford one of these big things, and Dr. Gordon's going to try to find one like the one from Israel, which was in the 623, 655 range. But when you move to the nose, you really do want to be more in the 800 range, because here you need better penetration, because you really want to be able to get through the skull. But the skull is very thick. When you go to the nose, there's not much resistance to these lasers absolutely enhancing the health of the pituitary. And the sad thing is this. The cells that run it, the glands that run our body, like the thyroid, when you take it out of a 50-year-old dead body and look at it under a microscope, virtually all thyroids show cancer. If I send everybody listening on this phone today, and I send you to Harvard Medical School, according to what's on my website, you go watch my Fight Part 1, Fight 2, under eye infection, they will tell you that 96% of all of us have cytomegalic virus, which is a real herpes family virus, and it really does help kill you, but nobody diagnoses it. They don't even bother to treat it. Why? Because they don't have a drug that's going to kill it, so they just ignore it. Well, I don't want to ignore it. I want to raise your body's vitality by raising the detox and giving you the right kind of supplements and giving you the electrons you need to make sick tissues become alkaline, but I need in all cases enough energy for everything to work. So that's why the whole story is so simple to me. But going back to $299, $399, $499, the $299 is an LED, and a lot of people say, well, I think LED is, I think I bought an LED light for my house. So that doesn't begin to sound so impressive to people. Laser sounds more impressive. But working with Harvard, we had to go back to an LED to get the maximum effect and a pulsing and an 823. So it's quite interesting to see that there is no way that people are wasting their money. If you choose to play with the $499, you're not losing any ground because you didn't buy the $299 or the $3. And all of this is to try to keep people from getting totally crazy. We're going to have it on my website so that all of the details will be there, so you can sit and say, okay, I've read it. I think for me, I just want to get my toe in the water. I don't think my brain is starting to deteriorate. I don't think I need to have the expensive one. I just want to take a $299 and start to play with it and understand what this is all about. So when we take the $299, we tell people it's a 633. When you take the one for $399, it's a 655 nanometer. When you take the one for $499, it's an 810. What does that mean? That means the exact wavelength. And then we start saying, well, what happens? Well, if you have the one that's at 655, it's going to improve various health conditions. And it's going to actually be that it will start to receive the photoacceptors, and that's why we call it photobiomodulation. And what's fun to me is here I haven't spent $23,000, and yet we have all this research showing benefit. So for me, it's pretty simple. Everybody listening to me has to kind of get your feet wet and decide which one you think you want to play with. But I can tell you it's kind of a no-brainer. You have no loss, and you've got something that can't hurt, and so you've got these different abilities to treat different things. The safety, the one that is an actual laser for $3.99, the other two are LEDs. When it's an actual laser, then technically we have to say, gee, if you look directly into it a lot, it could be a little hard on the eye. So that means there is a slight safety issue when you go to the $3.99. The other two are LEDs. But in any event, we know that if we maintain optimal health, we're going to have less disease, less ailments, and we have to let everybody kind of play with it, what seems to work best for them. So as we do know, that's why just by telling people, human bodies are different. There would be somebody that won't respond. For this reason, to give a 90-day, no question asked, 80% refund if the product doesn't improve your condition is pretty easy for us to do. They've been tested for electrical safety. They're totally safe. They generate less energy than most electronic devices, but they are not approved as a medical device by any regulatory body in this country, Canada, or any other country right now. But they're going to get there because they've been looking at this seriously in China. They've actually used about 1 million of these lights in China for going back for over 10 years now. Who else has a question?
Yes, Gordon, I have a question.
Please.
Will this help with an outer ear infection, a chronic ear infection?
I would say absolutely. We're raising the vitality of the body, and of course, what I do is I teach people that Longevity Plus has a line of products, and we did find that we have a ACS 200 silver that actually in 1 minute kills more of the actual infection like Candida than we get out of 60 minutes of exposure to a competing product called Argentin. So at the current time, I have everybody know that they can put the silver in their eye as well as their ear. And so what I do is I use simple things, and that's one of the reasons I have some 4,000 doctors who belong to my school, which is a virtual school of advanced medicine called FACT, and it's on my website, and any health professional is free to join. And there I lay out how I would sometimes take a chronic ear infection, and I'll alternate taking, first of all, some of the silver orally. I will put some silver in the ear one night, and a couple of nights later I'll put some liquid garlic called kyolic in the ear, and liquid garlic is a chelating agent, and there's virtually no bugs that can grow around it. So I tend to add additional tricks, but yes, anytime you add the $299 or $300 or $499, you're adding energy so that the other things you have tried, whether you've tried homeopathy or ear drops or whatever you've tried, they're going to work better because by raising the energy, you facilitate the body using what we're giving. That's what happened to me. I was on every nutrient you could take. And when I walked out of the first time, I was on a 10-minute demonstration where I sat on a loop with a magnet for 3 minutes, leaned against it for 3 minutes, and hanging around my neck for 3 minutes. I got up, and my body was abuzz. I said, my heavens, if this is legal, I've got to teach the world what's going on. But I was primed and ready to get the effect because I had all the nutrients in my body. I'd swallowed them that morning. That didn't mean I was using but 1 or 2%. We have people that take lots of nutrients, and yet their levels of vitamin D are in the toilet. They're just virtually none. So it's pretty amazing what we can do.
Dr. Gordon?
Yes.
Can I? You mentioned traumatic brain injury. What about a post-aneurysm rupture with scar tissue that's causing seizures?
Okay, this is a post-aneurysm rupture of a brain aneurysm?
Brain aneurysm, yes.
Okay, and how long ago did that happen?
That was nearly a year ago, and then about 6 weeks ago is when the 2 seizures happened that they're relating back to the injury of the rupture.
Okay. Has it been pretty good recovery of neurological function otherwise?
Yes, yes.
Good.
And the question is, can we use the laser to help repair that scar tissue and that damage in the brain?
No question. It is well studied and well shown that it will definitely help because that's the same as a stroke. It's the same situation, and there is every reason to definitely get the neurological $4.99 device.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yep. How you doing, Dr. Gordon?
I'm doing fine.
Yes, this is Jeremiah from New York.
Oh, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, how's it going? How you been?
Long time no see.
Yeah.
You're going to go to the big show down there?
Yeah, we're thinking about it.
It's fun. There's a lot of people at Integrative Medicine. It's a good show.
I got a quick question for you, Dr. Gordon.
Speak up.
I have somebody with fibrosis in the lungs, which is is usually from parasite roundworms.
Yes.
I've been using the PEMF on him, and he's getting a little better. And I'm a little intrigued with the laser. What does the laser would do for somebody like that?
Okay, across the board, I would say to you that.
And he's chronic.
First of all, are we calling this pulmonary fibrosis?
Yes, he is. Exactly what you just said.
Okay. Well, pulmonary fibrosis, when I studied this in Tokyo, we were pretty happy with what we were able to do because they had a stabilized form of SOD. It's now available in this country called Glisod, G-L-I-S-O-D.
G-L-I-S-O-D.
You've heard of it. And that's one of the things that I've definitely seen help tremendously. In addition to that, in all scarring tissue, I need to have people on high doses of the vitamin C that we carry that has the MSM.
He's taking that.
Okay, so we're doing that. And then by all means, you're already using the PEMF very fortunately. Here's my thing with my Pardon me?
No, I'm listening.
Okay, so the PEMF, when I use it, it's kind of the same game. I find in my body at age 78, I wind up treating the liver and the kidney, then the heart, then the neck, then the head. It takes time. But in addition to that, the laser that we will try to locate for you that is the one that is like. So go up and read what B-Cure was, then read what Erconia sells, and we will have to help you find a laser because the laser is coming in from a different direction and using the PEMF and laser is going to be extremely beneficial using in any patient. The nasal one, when you get a chance to review these papers, which I will be putting on my website by Monday, and you'll be able to see it. And again, if you missed the webinar because you're busy seeing patients on Monday, it will replay, and once you see the data, you're going to want anybody like that. They can afford, because it's so hard to get around New York, if they wind up just buying for themselves a $2.99 or a $4.99 laser so they can add to what you're doing. Because think of it this way. My last 3 lectures have focused on nitric oxide.
Right.
And I've explained in those lectures how critical it is because it dilates the blood flow to the lungs. So remember that what we're saying to you is that we know the nose elaborates nitric oxide, but it doesn't do a good job when it's poisoned and filled with toxins and it's not operating efficiently. So in any case, anybody that you treat, in addition to that, you're going to be releasing growth factors. Now, you need to know that if you haven't joined FACT, I've been teaching everybody that Harvard Medical School took an old mouse and made it young again. You put in Google, you put in Harvard aged mouse study, and the aged mouse, the brain came back, the testicle filled with cells, the kidney function, everything happened. What did they do? They used tamoxifen, which is an SCRM beta. That would be a estrogen receptor. And the point is, it modulates estrogen. And it's what I sell, and we call ours Herbal Remedy from Thailand. Shorthand, we call it HRT. But you want to realize that what you're having to do, we have to turn up the ability of the body to repair itself. And most people, as we age, nobody thinks about what are you going to do on DHEA and progesterone and that stuff. So do a saliva test that for $100 that will show his progesterone and DHEA, and we'll get him on testosterone and add my HRT. So I want to ramp up hormone. That's why everything I do is food, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin. So when you go back to my fight program, I just wanted to add that because you are doing more for this patient with fibrosis than anybody can get. They can't find anybody in New York who can do as much as you will be doing. And I'm happy always. I do telephone consultations. They're recorded, and I go over what is known of the existing tests, and I often recommend doing some additional newer tests because we can really pinpoint and improve the programs that you're doing. But thank you for the question. Anybody fighting that kind of disease would be foolish not to buy and take advantage of a 25-minute daily application of something in their nose that doesn't run up a big bill, and at the end of 2-3 months they may have to change the battery.
So I will have to run him on this laser and the PEMF.
Okay, so let me say it a different way. I think, yes, that's fine, because you have access. You can buy the ACS Silver, and you can sterilize the nasal unit. Most people will wind up wanting to own their own nasal unit, and that's the reason that we're happy to have something as cheap as $299 with 10% off. That's going to bring it closer to $260, and so that's including shipping. I'd like to get to the point that people like that can do something every day, even if they can't get to your office every day, and it keeps what you're doing going forward.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
Doc, I have one more question. I have the PEMF and the Beecher laser. My uncle has COPD. Now,
yes.
I heard you say on one of your webinars how the laser and the PEMF can help the COPD. How would I use that with him?
Okay, so what you're going to do is this. In general, on the laser that you own, if we treat a person as much as 3 times a day, but we don't have to do much more than 20 minutes. As I repeat, the lady in Vienna was treating the patient for 8.5 minutes to the torso and 8.5 minutes to the brain. So you want to treat both areas. Always remember the brain, the brain, the brain. Now, when you're thinking of the brain, I mean, that essentially even includes the neck area, because if you look at any picture of a skeleton, you know that the ganglions go up and down the spine. So what we're trying to do is help to energize the ganglions, because think of it that the mitochondria are not functioning. They're not energized. And think of it as though everybody that you see that doesn't feel good is like a cell phone that needs to be recharged. And you've got the recharger. The charger is the PEMF, and the charger is the use of the laser. But in addition to that, with COPD, I really like, if the patient can afford, I think that the Longevity Plus sells Quinton Marine Plasma, and it's 0.9, which means that it's very dilute, very comfortable, and I think you can buy in a nebulizer online for a little bit of money. You can buy them Amazon anywhere, a nebulizer. Some people really get to the point they love them and they buy the Aero Neb, which might be $200, but it's portable. It's got a battery and they can walk anywhere with it, and it will turn out a thick white cloud mist that everybody, when you see them, they're breathing it in, and it's coating the entire lung. And I took a COPD doctor that was ready to go on full-time disability, and in 1 month I had her running up and down the beach in Santa Monica and going back to work, because the tricks are all there. And if you're not getting any full success, don't hesitate, because remember, I'm an anti-aging doctor, and people really do better if you get them on the testosterone. They really do better if we broaden the horizon. I mean, it's always good to realize that we have my FIGHT program, and we have it carefully explained on my website, so that for 3 hours I talk about food, infection, genetics, heavy metals, hormone toxin, with slides and what tests we can look at. Because remember, leaving out one piece, like I always use the example, if you take a nice, beautiful 1950 Chevy and you restore it, and you do seat covers and paint it and a new motor and a new transmission and new exhaust and everything, but you don't put the air in the tires, you still do. So the devil is always in the details. So that's why I hope to make clear that as far as I'm concerned, using the laser in the nose is like putting the air in the tires. Whatever else you're doing is going to work better. I hope that makes it clear.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Dr. Gordon, the website, the recording that you just made, I can listen to this again in the website?
Yes, no, let's go slow. GordonResearch.com is going to be doing the lecture. There are already a lecture, 2 of them on lasers right now. If you were there tonight, the last most recent webinar is on intranasal laser with a lot of important slides. The one right before that was on the laser that comes from Israel, which gives you background of why lasers are useful. The one that I'm going to do on Monday ties the cancer story in and how basic this is. But tonight's discussion on the phone is recorded, and all you do is email me at ggordon@gordonresearch.com, and I will see to it that I send that email to Laura, my assistant, and she will push a button, and the entire recording will be sent to you, and you can send it to anybody you want to send it to.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else going to speak up?
I have one more question about, you said that for carpal tunnel syndrome, you put the laser on your neck?
Yeah, let's go over that one more time. I want to make sure that you spend some time reading the Laser Talk, the webinar where I try to explain this stuff. And you'll understand it better, because it can get a little technical, as to where the cell bodies, the ganglions are. They're around the spine. And the point that we're making is this, is that when you look at what we've done with like an injured gymnast that has been absolutely unable to do any exercise for 5-6 years because of back pain, she wound up, nobody told her about treating the brain, and so she's just treating 20 minutes 3 times a day, and she takes, in the laser, she just gently sweeps it over the part of her body that has been sick. And she's so happy that it's been now about 6 weeks, and she has 80% recovery. She would have gotten a quicker recovery if she'd been lucky enough to know more. And so whatever you do, always think that the brain is kind of the control box. And what we showed in Vienna on the cancer patients is that you could take and just look at the brain like it was a pie and cut it into 4 pieces and do the left frontal area, the right frontal area, the posterior, right? So the point is this, as you move that laser around, you're regenerating, because that energy, amazingly enough, does go through that skull, and it is picked up by the blood circulation in the skin, and it's going to help the whole body.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Well, I don't want to keep everybody any longer. I think we've done pretty good for approximately an hour, so thank you all for participating. You've helped everybody. It will be recorded, and other people will gain. Thank you for your participation this evening. I look forward
Doc,
to some of you.
I have one more thing I want to explain to you. A friend of mine, I heard you speak on one of your webinars that your girl broke her pelvis.
Yes.
A friend of mine who was 87 years old, I've been sleeping on a magnet pad for 20 years. I've been taking Kalydeco for 20 years. He, in 1 week, his pelvis was broken and separated by over an inch. In 1 week, the bone grew together. Doing a certain protocol and, using magnets and, different, so I'm not sure if I can explain that to you now or how I would,
Well, the point is this. My email is ggordon@gordonresearch.com, and anything that you bother to write down, if it's usable, it may go to 4,000 doctors, so take the time, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your help.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you again, everybody. Good night, then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. All right.